exciting video lined up for you guys today. Today we're going to take our landscape from looking like this to looking like this. So basically we're going to be creating an angle blended auto material that blends between rock and snow depending on the slope or the angle of the landscape. We have a lot of material to cover today, so let's just jump right in. The first thing that I want to do is show you a couple of tweaks that I made to the landscape for performance optimization. So what I'm going to do here is come up to modes and go to landscape mode. And then I'm going to come to the manage tab and click resize. And what I've done is I set my section size. It used to be 127 by 127 quads, and I set it to 255 by 255 quads to increase the density of the terrain up close to the camera. Now you might be saying, well, that's gonna really hurt performance, but in order to improve performance, I did something else. So let's come down here to the LOD distribution. And what I've done is I've set the LOD 0 screen size to 1.8, LOD 0 to 1, and other LODs to 1.6. And if we look at our landscape in brush wireframe mode, you can see that those values have tuned the landscape so that our triangle density up close is nice and high, but further off in the distance, it's something that's much more manageable. So it's really important to get these LOD distribution settings set like this so that you're not killing your performance after you set the section size to 255 by 255 quads. Okay, with that out of the way, the first thing that we need to do is go and grab some materials. And for that, we're going to be using Quixel MegaScans Bridge. And so here I am in Bridge, and the first material that we need is a snow material. And so I went ahead and grabbed this one. It's called Windswept Snowy Stones 2x2M. And I'll put a link to this precise material in the description because there may be several of them with similar names. The other kind of material we need is a rock. So I'm going to come over here to the menu and pick rock. And as you might have guessed, there are a lot of different rock materials in here, but what I'm looking for is a really large one. And so up here under sizes, I'm going to sort by size, and I'm going to pick something larger than 8 meters. And in this case, I only have a couple to choose from, and I chose this one. It's called Layered Rock Cliff 20 by 20 meters. And so I'm going to grab a texture that covers a really large area. And that's also going to help me cut down on the tiling artifacts that sometimes we get. Okay, so I'm going to select those two materials. And I went ahead and downloaded them at 4K resolution. And if we take a look at my download settings, I downloaded albedo, cavity, normal, displacement, AO, and roughness. And I did that for both the snow and for the cliff rock material. Okay, so once I have the textures, I'm going to come into Substance Designer here. And this is material that I covered in episode number 3 called Landscape Textures, where we talked about creating the CR and NOH textures. Basically, I bring in all of the textures that I downloaded from Quixel MegaScans, and I use these nodes here in Substance Designer to swizzle them into CR and NOH. Now, if you need more details on that, please go back and take a look at episode 3 so you'll know how to create these textures. I create 2 different textures. One of them is for viewing close up, and another one is for viewing further away, and this helps to break down tiling. So I did this for both my snow and also for my rock. And so here's my rock cliff Substance Designer network. Now, if you don't have Substance Designer, you can also do the same kind of thing in Photoshop or GIMP. And you can also do this in Quixel Mixer, and I'll put a link to a tutorial for how to do that right here. Alright, so once we've downloaded and processed the textures in Substance Designer, I imported them into Unreal. And here's my rock cliff texture, and here's my my CR texture, and here's my rock cliff NOH texture. Now it's really important for me to point out here that the NOH texture needs to be in BC7 format and sRGB needs to be false. So be sure that you open up the texture, set it to BC7, and turn off sRGB. And you need to do that for both the snow texture and the cliff texture. So here's my cliff texture, and here is my snow textures. Alright, so once we've done that, we need to create the materials for them, material functions. And so here's the material function that I created for my snow texture. And if you want to know how to create these materials, go back and watch episode 4, and I'll link that one right here. It basically shows you how to put together this landscape material here. So for snow, I brought in my 2 near textures and my 2 far textures, and then I set all of the values here for the multiplying of my UV coordinates to get the right sizes and scales of things. And then I did the same thing for my rock material. Now, my rock material is a little bit different because as we saw in Quixel Bridge, this texture is meant to be 20 meters. And so my values here are a little bit non-standard. So I'm going to go ahead and show you these. This 2039 is a prime number that's close to 20 meters. And then this is the rotated version that's just a little bit under 20 meters. And then I have these other values set here too. It's using scientific notation, but you can see over here, this is 31,687, 16,069, and 17,929. So I have both my cliff material and my snow material. And now I need to create a material to apply to my landscape. And so I'm going to come down here to my materials folder, and I'm just going to create a new one so we can kind of go through the process of how this works. And I'll just call it test landscape material. And we're going to go ahead and assign this to our landscape. And you can see there's nothing on this material yet because it's just a default empty material. And so let's just start here and we'll build up from this. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to bring in my rock cliff and my ground snow. And these nice material functions have all of the root settings inside this one pin called the mat output. And so what I need to do here is I need to add a break material attributes node and then go ahead and wire this up. So I'm going to wire base color, specular, roughness, normal, and ambient occlusion. All right, and at this point I'm ready to hook up one of my materials. So right now I only have one material that I can add at a time here. So let's take a look at cliff. I'll just go ahead and wire that in and save it. And then we'll jump back here to our map. And now you can see that my cliff material has been added. And I can also do the same thing for the snow material. So if I take the snow materials mat output and wire that into the attribute input of my break materials here, and I save it, then I can come back to my landscape, and now I've got my snow applied to my landscape. So you can see I've got this nice kind of rocky looking snow. And now what I want to do is create a mask that blends between these two materials based on the slope angle of the landscape. So I'm just going to kind of move these out of the way because for the next few minutes what we're going to be doing is building up a mask. And this is something that I covered way back in a previous video in episode number 6 of my materials series. So I'll link that one right here, and you can go back and take a look at that, but let's just go over the basics of it now. First of all, we need the normal, and so I'm going to grab the vertex normal in world space, and then we need to see which direction this normal is facing. If the normal is facing up, we want our mask to be white, and if the normal is not facing up, we want it to be black. So for that, I know that the B component of my normal, or the Z component of my normal, determines whether it's facing up. So if I add a component mask, and then I grab the B component, or the Z component of the normal, now if I wire this into my base color, I can take a look, and you can see that now I have a mask that is up facing. So up here at the top, it has a value of 1, and down here at the bottom, it has a value of -1. And so that was pretty simple. Now all I need to do is add some controls to allow me to adjust the mask. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a constant here. And this constant is going to allow me to tweak how far down the sphere the mask goes. Because right now it's stopping kind of like right in the middle, but if I want to make it black further up or further down, I can use this constant. So if I add a value of -0.5, this is going to push the mask further up. So you can see now it goes to black much sooner. So I can use this value to push the whiteness of my mask further up or further down the angle of the sphere. The other control that I need is the contrast. You can see that there's kind of a blurry fall off right here. I need to create a mask that has a sharper edge. And so in order to do that, first of all, I'm going to subtract 0.5. And then I'm going to multiply by a sharpness value. And then I'm going to add 0.5 back in. And this little function here of subtracting 0.5, multiplying, and then adding back in is something that's really useful. This is kind of like a little contrast function. And if I plug this into base color, what you're going to see now is that I've increased the contrast of my mask. So the higher the value I give it here, the higher the sharpness is going to be. So if I give this a value of, say, 100, now my sharpness is really high, but it also forced the mask all the way up. So then I have to compensate for that by changing this value just a little bit. So maybe if I set this to 0, yeah, now you can see that instead of a soft fall off, I'm getting a really hard line. And that's exactly what I want. So now I can use these two controls to control both the angle that I want to use and how hard the edge of my mask is going to be. So now that I've got a mask, I can take these values here and I can use them to blend between my snow material and my cliff material. So let's go ahead and do that now. In order to blend materials, I need a blend material node. So I'm going to use blend material attributes. And I'm going to plug my cliff material into A and my snow material into B. And then I'm going to plug my mask into the alpha channel. And now I can plug this into attributes. And you can see that now I'm blending between my rock and my snow. So let's take a look and see what we get on our landscape. All right, you can see that I'm getting some blending between rocks and snow, but it's kind of screwy looking. And I'm going to show you the reason for that. We need to come back to our material here. And there's one very important thing that we need to add. We need to add a saturate node. And what this is going to do is it's going to clamp our mask so that it only goes between 0 and 1. Right now our mask is actually going into the negative here, down on the underside of the sphere. And so if I add a saturate, anything below 0 is going to get clamped to 0. And then my blending is going to work correctly. You can see that it already looks better on my sphere over here. So let's go ahead and hit save. And we'll come back to our map. And now you can see things are shaping up just a little bit. But we need to adjust some things. It looks like our angle is a little bit too steep. So let's come back here and adjust our settings. So for the angle control, I'm going to add -0.5. And for the sharpness, I'm just going to use a value of 5. And so now I have some nice fall off here. So we can come back to our terrain. And now you can see I'm getting what I want. I've got the snow on the path here, and I've got my stone material on my terrain. And this is starting to look kind of like what I want. So if I look out here over my terrain, you can see that I've got snow on the tops of things and stone on the sides of things. But there are still a few things left that we can do. So the first thing that I want to do is test this out in game. So let's come up here under Window, and I'm going to choose World Settings. And I'm going to come down here and make sure my game mode override is set to third-person game mode. Now when I hit play, it'll put a mannequin in our game and we can run around in third person. And so here we go. I've got my mannequin. You can see that I can follow along this little path on my landscape. And our landscape is looking pretty cool. Now, there is one thing that I don't really like, and that is the blending on the sides of the path is kind of this really nice smooth gradient. And what I'd really like to do is break that up so that it's using the normals of the stone instead of just kind of smooth vertex blended gradient. And so let's do that next. So if we come back here to our test material, the problem that we have is that right now we're using vertex normals for blending. And what we really want to do for our mask is use pixel normals. And so if I right click here and type normal, you can see that I've got a pixel normal world space. Now if I use this, I'm going to wire this in, and now we'll just look at our mask in the base color. And I'll go ahead and save this so that you can see what it looks like in the world. And now you can see there's quite a big difference. Whereas before we had things kind of blocky and chunky looking, now I'm getting these really sharp masks that show up on the top of the pixel normals. And this isn't quite what I was looking for. The pixel normals are just a little bit too crunchy in the cliff material that I'm using here. And so kind of what I want is something that's sort of halfway between a vertex normal mask and a pixel normal mask. And so let's go ahead and do that. So we'll come back into our material here. And here's our pixel normal and here's our vertex normal. And if we want something that's halfway in between, all we have to do is add a lerp node, a linear interpolate. And we're going to blend between the vertex normal and the pixel normal based on a hard-coded value. The value that I like to use here is 0.25. But this is something that's adjustable. You can tweak it to whatever you want. So I'm blending between my vertex normal and my pixel normal. And I'll save that, and we'll come back over here and take a look at what that map looks or mask looks like. Okay, so now I'm getting something that's a little bit closer to what I want. That's pretty good. So I've got snow coverage on the tops of things and not on the sides of things. And I might tweak my values just a little bit to get things looking a little bit better. I'm going to do that and then come right back. All right, here's a mask that looks just a little bit better. In my material, I set my lerp alpha value to 0.2 instead of 0.25. And I set my value here to -0.4 instead of 0.5 to give myself just a little bit more spread in the snow. So now that I've got this mask set up, the last thing that I need to do is just use the mask to blend between my snow material and my rock material. So here's my blend material attributes. I've got my mask data coming in, and I'm blending between my rock cliff and my snow. So if I just take this, I need to wire the base color into base color. Now if I just take this and wire it into the attribute pin, I'm good to go. Oh, except I've got this error here. Invalid node pixel normal world space was used for normal input. And what this is telling me is that I'm trying to blend between my normals using my normal. And basically what it's doing is it's creating a circular dependency where in order to generate my normal, I need my normal. It's kind of a catch-22. And so basically what this means is I can't use this blend material attributes node because to blend the normals of my cliff and my snow, I can't use the normal of the input. I can use the normal for everything else, just not for blending the normals themselves. So I need to create a custom node here. Now, there already is a custom node of this, and if I go to the right-click menu here and do matte layer blend, you can see there are a bunch of different kinds of matte layer blending. And if I use a matte layer blend standard, you can see I can plug in my base material, my top material, and my alpha value. Well, this mask that we've created is our alpha value, so we'll plug that in. Then I want my base layer to be my cliff and my top layer to be my snow. And if I plug this in, does that work? Nope. It's basically the same error. And so I need to make a custom version of this that is using only the vertex normal to blend for everything, or for the normal, but the pixel normal and the vertex normal for everything else. See, I can fix this problem if I just bypass my lerp and don't use my pixel normal. So we'll go ahead and save that and take a look at what it looks like on our landscape. Yeah, that's pretty cool looking, but it's still not using the nice blending using the vertex or the pixel normal of my stones. And so what I've done is I created a custom version of this matte layer blend standard with a few little tweaks. So let's take a look at that now. If I come into matte layer blend standard and I click this browse button over here, it'll show me where this node is. Now this is a node that ships with Unreal, so you're not going to want to edit this one. But if you right click on this and or just do Control C for copy, then you can paste a copy of that to somewhere else. And so I'm going to come in here to materials, and I've already done this, so I can just show you. So if I hit Control V for paste, there's the copy that I created, and now I can edit this one and do whatever I want. And so what I've done is I've created this one called Matte Layer Blend Custom. So let's take a look at Matte Layer Blend Custom that I created. The first thing that I did is I created two inputs here. One is called Alpha Pixel, and the other one is called Alpha Vertex. And for Alpha Pixel, I'm using that to blend all of the materials except the normal. So if I select Alpha Vertex here, you can see that if I find my normal here, I'm blending between my normals using this Alpha Vertex input. The other thing that I added to this custom version of the matte layer blend node is height. So I have inputs for base height and top height. And then down here, I blend between the height using the alpha vertex value as well. And I added a new output for output blending the height. So let's go ahead and add this to our scene, or to our material. So I'll grab my matte layer blend custom, and we'll put it in here. And so now I need to wire in for rock cliff, my base material and my base height, and my top material and my top height. And now I can wire the blended material in here instead of using this one. And then for my alpha pixel, I can use the mask that we've created here. But for the alpha vertex, I need to create a version of this that doesn't use the pixel normal. So I'm just going to copy all of these and paste them here. And then I'm going to wire my vertex normal in here and wire this into alpha vertex. So I'm using the vertex mask to blend my normals, and I'm going to use the nice vertex and pixel mask to blend everything else. So let's save this and take a look at our result. And now we've got something that is just super cool. You can see that it's using the nice normals of the stone to blend, and everything's working great. So let's hit play and run around and take a look at what we got. So you can see I've got a nice blending between the snow and the stone. And if I look out in the distance, man, it's looking really cool. There is one last thing that I want to do, and that is add displacement mapping. You can see if I come down here kind of close to my material, my terrain has no detail displacement. And we can do that because we've already taken a look at that in a previous video. If you go back and take a look at episode number 6, we created a displacement node that makes it really easy to add displacement. So here's our material. Oh, you know what? Before we add displacement, I do want to do one thing to clean up this mess. And that is, I want to put my layer blend mask in its own material function, just so that I don't have so many loose nodes out here like this. So I went ahead and created a material function that does this, and it also does this. And so let's take a look at that now. It's called MF Angle Blend, and here it is. You can see that I'm bringing in my pixel normal and world space, and I have an input tab for that. I've got my vertex normal. I've got an input for how much to blend between the pixel and vertex normal. Then I've got an input for the angle multiplier and another input for the angle sharpness. And then all of the rest of this is exactly the same as the mask that we already created here. So let's go ahead and add our MF Angle Blend to our test landscape material. And you can see here I just need to wire in my pixel normal, a pixel normal blend value, which would be, I already have good defaults for all of these. And so all I have to do is take my pixel output here and wire it into alpha pixel, and my vertex output here and wire it into alpha vertex. And now I can delete all of these nodes because they're replaced by the functionality that's in my MF Angle Blend. All right, now we're good to go, and all we need to do is add our displacement. So I'm going to come here and add my MI landscape displacement to my material. And as I said, we went over how to do landscape displacement in episode 6, so take a look at that. But now that I've got my height coming out of my matte layer blend custom, I can wire that into here, and then I can connect my world displacement out here into the world displacement of my root, and my tessellation multiplier into the tessellation multiplier on my root. And there's one last thing that I need to set on my root here before this will work. And so I'm going to come down here to the tessellation section, and I'm going to set this from no tessellation to flat tessellation. And then I'll hit save and come back over to my landscape. And now I should be getting some nice displacement on my terrain. You can see it kind of popping up there. If I switch over to my wireframe mode, you can see that I'm getting tessellated triangles, and then they go away once I move back a little bit just to save on some performance. And so let's do a quick review of what we talked about so far today. So we created a rock cliff material and a ground snow material by downloading these textures from Quixel Bridge and then processing them in Substance Designer. And we want to blend between these two, so we created this MF angle blend material function. And then in order to blend, we needed to create this custom matte layer blend node because we needed to blend the normals with the vertex, but we could blend everything else with the nice pixel. And then we added displacement, and we're good to go. So one last time, let's hit play and take our level for a spin. And so here we are in the level. You can see if we look out here in the distance, we've got some really nice looking blend between our snow and our cliff rock materials. Pretty cool. I'm really happy with the results that we got today, and I hope you like it too. Next week, we're going to take a look at height blending. So right now we have rock and snow, but what if we want to do maybe like grass and dirt or some other materials like further down in altitude? So that's what we're going to talk about next week. I hope you'll look forward to that and that you'll come back next week to check it out. See you later, everybody.